Karibu sana sana to Homescapes today. As usual, I'm very excited and ready to passionate to bring and to come live to you as we discuss pertinent matters in the kingdom of God, but also those that are happening at our homes today. My name is Jasmine Wangai, excited to be your host today. I know you guys are at home, hopefully resting, because today is Eid Mubarak, if you didn't know. If you didn't know why we were given a holiday, it's Eid Mubarak. So kindly take time to play with our Muslim brothers. We've done it in the past, and so this is an invitation for you to be praying with them. So today we have an exciting topic, as usual, by the way. I believe we always have exciting topics. And our topic today is the dating committee. And so to our amazing and able team that is ready, I have a question for you. What's your understanding? What are your thoughts on dating committee? When you hear the word dating committee, what are your thoughts on it?
I almost suspect.
What's the quotes about?
She's put quotes.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's a trick question.
When you're already feeling triggered. Are you already feeling triggered by the quote?
I'm wondering, you guys get right into the question. Answer it. I want you, the emphasis on the dating committee.
Oh, not the quotes.
Not the quotes.
Let's lose the quotes first. Just say a dating committee is people who, in my understanding,
Care
people
about
who
your soul.
can help you walk
Care
through
about
your
your
journey.
soul.
No, help you on your journey of dating. They give you perhaps advice about some here and there about how to go around dating.
People
And
that
they are
you
very
have invited, or people who have
No, just people
decided you are in need of help.
Mostly it's just people around you, your friends, watu wenye wanakujali. And they do not want you to fall into some pitfalls.
The community of faith.
Because
The
because-
community of it. People who normally
when they look at you, all they see is pitfalls on your way.
On your way.
love blinds. So, uko na
Shots
zile
fired
mablinds za
Sasa hata
upendo.
hawezi kuallow, then you just enjoy. See, then you like
No.
So
Hii ni kama
this-
kuweka
if love
magari
becomes
zinakusaidia
too
usianguke.
nini,
Too clear.
Maybe also
so
to add,
mind, is it love anymore?
also to add maybe, in the place of the dating committee, these are people, during that stage of dating, these are people who come alongside you. As you experience the joy of a relationship, they are here to let you know, brother or a sister, you're following the right track, or here you're going to mess up something and all that. So they walk
Question.
with you through that journey. You get so that you may that
You don't have to walk alone.
you don't have to walk
So
alone.
question,
alone.
question
Yeah.
for the people who are defining with this definition. Is it because they are better, they've done it excellently, and so are now coming alongside you to walk with you through the journey? Is it because they are relationship experts? Is it because they've done it, what's the background? What's the
who
catapulting force?
Also,
On
are
top
they
of
none
also
of
currently
those.
in relationships, and who is caring for their relationships
They-
as
you know,
they are caring for you?
No, let's not. Wait, before we kill this dating committee.
But that's a good question.
Today I wanted. Ukienda pale kwa mkahawa na una pesa ya kutosha.
That's a good Samaritan.
Also, yeah.
Which is slightly different.
Even your mother
Reverend
can
Jazz.
help you or your
Absolutely.
mother.
Reverend Jazz,
Let's
also they
hear
have,
Reverend
also it
Philip.
comes from their acknowledging that no one has monopoly of information. You get, so whether they are dating or not dating at that moment, you acknowledge that there's some things that they can help you. There's some information, as iron sharpens iron.
So that's one question and another.
But I thought,
I wish
but I
that's all they did then.
Oh, that's not all
okay,
they
that's
do.
a good,
Okay.
that's a good, that's a good aspect.
I think we might have some broad definitions. Just from the reactions I'm hearing, there could be issues that
We're raising up here.
yes,
Rev
I
Maki-
see like it's being viewed with suspicion.
Yeah, I was going to say that sometimes they don't have good relationships. They don't have to have been there before you sometimes. They're just people. And they're concerned for
Who
you.
might even know less than you do.
They may even know nothing, but they're concerned about you. And they like to see a good thing happen. And therefore,
Do they?
this opportunity is what
One
you don't want to be lost to this opportunity for guiding you. Part of their CV is to
Guiding.
say, I worked with Reverend Olaine in her journey
See,
of
therein
dating.
lies the
You know,
issue.
it
It is
is
part of their CV.
married.
Yeah, they're doing it for
part of my
themselves,
CV is
not
that I
for
did a good
you.
job, you know.
Me, my issue is, where did this thing come, especially in the Christian community? Who came? You know, it looks like, except people are in your, business, and I'm all for peace today. By the way, I don't have the intention of.
You're always for peace.
I'm just saying, where did it come from? Why does it look like I'm unable to handle my life? Me and God the Father and God the Son and God the Holy Spirit, and the man in whom I am interested
Man in
are unable.
question.
At the risk of
Been
repeating
able to walk
myself.
through this journey. No, but
You have to-
seriously,
who walks
let's
this life
listen to
alone?
Rebel over here.
even as
I
you have
think that's a
quoted.
good question.
But you see also you have quoted, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Their community.
Oh,
there's
they are
also
community
Yeah.
themselves.
They exist
Yes,
in
there's a divine
community.
community.
And you see
So
them, they're
even
the
with-
ones who know
with the
everything.
united
They don't have
purpose
to
though.
be, they're not caught up with this thing you said, mtu hajui, mtu anaweza kosa kujua.
Exactly.
They are
all
aware, they
doing it.
care deeply about me.
They are
That's-
united in purpose.
They are united in purpose, in thought, in heart
Yeah.
towards me.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Why is that not enough for me?
You see, the reason you go to school is simply because you don't know everything. These guys who are around you, surely, they perhaps know something. And sometimes it's okay to say, maybe hapa sijui kila kitu. And someone else has a view that is different from yours and can be able to help you see a perspective.
But only if you ask them. Only if I went to Reverend Maggie and asked, hey, there's this thing that is going on in my heart about this guy. I just want to know.
Imagine
What
sometimes
do-
you don't even know you need that.
Yeah.
Oh my
Then
goodness.
you allow me to get there, then ask. But me, I was just happy. I was in love. Nini, and then mtu tu, out of nowhere, Reverend Maggie comes and says, so I have noticed
Yes.
there is a gentleman in your life.
Yes.
And I want
that's
to,
way.
and me, I'm like, hey, hold up. Even me, I'm not yet sure. How can you ask me questions that I don't even know myself?
There's-
Simfichi, tuko hapa,
There's a
lakini
Swahili-
nataka ku
There's
experience
a
on my
Swahili
own.
is something that say utajua hujui. So they don't want to make you just in case you make a mistake. They don't want to say or to reach that point that they're saying tuliona, you get huko unajua.
But
So they
see,
want you
and
to get
know,
involved
that
too.
This is my other
And
question.
they don't want to feel guilty
Why
later
are
on that they
why
never
are they
helped
worried
you.
Yeah, you
that
know.
my heart will break? It's not their heart that
Exactly.
will break, it's mine.
It's your heart that
And
is
the Lord is able
We
to
care
heal.
about you.
And
No, the
Lorraine.
He has
repercussions-
sent
We
His
love you.
word
We
Lorraine.
care
healed
about you.
all
Lorraine,
my
our disease.
The balm of Gilead.
Yeah, we love you. We love you.
It's available for
Lorraine.
me.
It's
So we don't
available.
want to see
we
you
have
getting
seen
hurt.
we have seen the effects of relationships not working, especially even in church. You get maybe someone is dating in a regroup, the relationship doesn't work. That person will hurt to the extent that they will no longer be attending that regroup.
But there's
So
another
we
reason.
care.
There's
We
this
care.
Ruaka
There are many
1, Ruaka
others,
2,
yeah.
Ruaka 3.
Yeah,
I
they're in
talk to
Ruaka
1, I go
12.
to 2, and I continue to discuss the sermon.
Let me
Yes,
attempt to
yes,
answer the question of origins. She asked where did it come from, and without answering whether it's legitimate or not, I think that's the issue before us. But in terms of where it came from, I feel like the body of Scripture itself. Just when you look at the congregation of teachings within Scripture, there is a strong emphasis towards being my brother's keeper. In your case, your sister's keeper. But more like an endorsement of the Christian community as a place of reference, as a place of identity, and as a place of mutual encouragement in a very positive way. And so I think the general concern about what we are saying, not walking alone, is that we have been called into community. Yes, we do have an individual relationship with God and with Christ, but we also have an personal relationship with the community of faith. Again, the assumption here is obviously that we share the same faith, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God of all, and shared values. I think that
I'm gonna say, and not one relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's common values. That we all ascribe to, and the assumption again is that when we have to obviously to define that dating community, are they coming from the community of faith? Are they well-meaning in terms of do we share the same values? And is it a community that I can identify with? Because I think there's a two-way traffic. I can identify with, and that it identifies with me, and therefore I can willingly be submitted to their, say, collective counsel, because I can trust that it is meant for good. So that's on a very general level, but I suspect you are more specific.
Yeah.
The most
In-
specific
in
issue is
fact-
rising up.
In fact, I can add, on top of Christianity, there's culture. We are Africans. Ulikuwa unatumwa duka, when you're running to the shop, a stranger finds you and asks you, umeenda wapi? Someone umeenda duka, umetumwa nini? And we had no issue with
accountability.
But do you know, hapo ndio mambo za uchawi zilianzia, because they know too much about what is happening in your house, and they say that kuku that she's going to buy, you know. Yeah, but if they didn't know,
they want to find out.
wangwana wanainvolviwa kwa maneno.
They know huyu ameiba pesa ya mzazi, and immediately they hold you or go and ask your mother, ulikuwa umetuma nani sukari? Because ilimpata akiwa ameshika 100 bob.
So then
accountability has always been in our lives.
a question. I'm glad you guys are addressing things on a general level, but is that really what happens on the ground?
Yeah.
Because I'm wondering, why is this all of a sudden then a debatable issue? You know, if accountability, as Bishop has rightly mentioned, is coming from a biblical caring, you know, mimicking the Godhead, you know, the unity of purpose, the care and the love. If it was like that, where are we still debating then? Which shows something is not
went
right.
wrong. How is
Something
it
went
that
wrong.
I trust the community of the Godhead and I don't trust the community of believers?
What is happening? You guys who are for the dating committee,
Okay.
what is going on?
Thank you for thank you for
For
that.
the question, the good
Thank you for
question.
the question. It's a very, very good question, indeed. But we have to acknowledge also that, you know, we also have human limitations. You get, we have to acknowledge that we are sinful people, and at times we don't keep to our word. You get, and that can lead to many. To a lot of heartache and a lot of pain. But having said that, I am not saying that we throw the baby with the bathwater. I think there is some benefits that we can get, especially if this if we come to acknowledge that this dating committee can help, you know, a relationship to thrive in that in that regard. So I strongly feel that yes, there are many advantages, which are very, very many, but also there are a few shortcomings. You get that we can work on. We can work on instead of instead of neglecting the whole.
Let me raise a few issues.
But I want,
Jenny,
before you raise
okay.
another issue, let me respond to that issue. Because I think it's important that we allow those around us that are well-meaning or seeking to do good a chance to say something positive to us. You see, we are talking about the Christian body. These guys are work in progress. That's what we say. Do not judge them. Don't throw away the baby with everything. Allow something useful to come out of this situation. Now, they are modeling their faith from the early church. You see, the early church, as we read in Acts chapter 4, was of one mind and of one's purpose. So one mind, one purpose, and before that, they had already been filled with the Holy Spirit. So therefore, the oneness of mind and purpose. So these young believers are seeking to grow in their faith and hold a sister or a brother into account. So
You're ground for practice.
and you are submitted to living in community, to living your love life in community. So they will subject you to scrutiny. They'll ask you questions. They'll see things you can't see. How can the blind lead the blind? So, because we know when you are in love, you can't even see. So you need to be led.
You cannot even see.
You don't see. Yeah. You need someone to hold your hand and walk with you. And the eyes are there and they're available. So why are you having an issue with this young Christian who wants to help you grow, seeing that you're also a young Christian? So together you are moving towards one good direction?
Hopefully
Of
one
purpose
good
and mind.
direction.
Yeah.
Here's my fundamental question. Do I get to invite you in, or do you invite yourself into my life?
But I'm in your community. I'm your friend.
Are you?
You can't wait for me to I come and ask you. That looks so formal and unfair.
It looks
and
so
unorganic.
formal.
Ask me, why don't you trust that I'm asking Jasmine?
But I'm
Because
there.
for you to
I'm the one who
come,
has
for you
sinned.
to come to ask you, I feel like the assumption you have made is that I'm not working with anyone, and you have determined for yourself that
No,
you must be
I'm the
good for me.
perfect
but I have
person
an
the
opinion.
perfect
You could be
person.
talking to the people, but I have an opinion over your life. I want to come and offer it.
There are many relationships you have in your
And
life that
I'm
you
not
don't
saying,
ask.
by the way, just to be clear, that people should live individualistic lives. I'm just saying, can we allow the person to choose? Because I have issue. I feel like an issue of control can crop up. Humans like to, someone used the word CV, was it Reverend Maggie? They want it to be on their CV, that they in fact, hata ukiona hivi Reverend Maura and his good wife Joanne, I played a huge part
Eh.
in
Ni kazi yangu hiyo.
In
That
fact,
is
I
my
was
work.
part of my
in
good
the-
work.
I've
Lakini
had
hata
people
Paul
who will
anasema
use
you are my
examples
joy,
of
my
you.
crown.
Yeah, and they will use examples of you. In fact, let me tell you, me, I've known these guys from Kitambo when they were in campus. One time,
Actually,
Reverend Maura said,
I
"Nini,
told
nini,
him.
nini," and I
called them for a
him,
meeting.
I called him and I called him out. And now look at, so
How
it's about
is
you.
it?
It's not about you. You don't give me. So I have a feeling there could be an issue of control that can crop up because people like to, I don't know, get that
As the
feeling
one
I'm
who
a
helped
relevant
them.
person
Yeah.
in the community, in this person's life. So why don't
And
you
I
give
feel
me
you.
the chance
Yes.
to
To
look at the
choose who.
community
To a
Yes.
point.
and determine, I trust Reverend Maggie. I
Yes.
think I can ask her this question. I can ask her to look at this gentleman for me and see what is good for me.
You see, you see
And
also-
if you come, you Reverend Maura,
Yes.
I have the right to say,
No.
I don't want to talk about it with you.
True.
And you should be okay. Don't go to Bishop Charles and say,
Alinikanda.
you know, this girl
She
looks like she
rejected my
doesn't want to
counsel.
live in
Yes,
community.
she doesn't.
I went
She's
to
a
talk
loner.
to her, and
She's a
yeah,
loner.
she must be a loner. Someone should talk to her. Now the next thing you know, you are the talk of community. How you don't want.
How you do not want
But
community.
meanwhile, Reverend Maggie knows my issues
Yes.
because I chose her.
I think ultimately you have the choice. You have that. You have the advantage of choosing. But again, when someone shares, maybe you're just walking like this, and someone asks about your relationship status, like something like that, they can trigger a discussion. You get the same way. Even certain way. Have you considered? You know,
Yes.
have you considered my servant?
servant
You get
job.
it triggers. Okay, I think I can do something.
let's
You know,
consider.
now positively, you get because at the end of the day, you are the one to say, I can take this wisdom, I can take this feedback, I can take this idea or something like that. But again, if you take everything from all people,
Everybody.
then you're not exercising some wisdom.
There's
There is
discretion. There
another
must
one
be
of my
discretion, I
issues.
think.
When he
Eh?
says, Ati, you can take this and not take this. Have you seen how people get offended if you don't take their advice?
Yeah,
No, 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 no.
absolutely.
So you come to
Yes.
them and you say, oh, I'm experiencing this and this challenge. I don't know whether this one is Nini. We were dating, then he said these things to me. And you say, that man does not love you the way Christ loves you. In fact, you should go and break up with him. And then I go
Have you
and think
broken
about
up?
it and I say, but all men are sinners.
And
Jesus is working in his life.
And,
I
and
think
for
I
the
can
women,
continue.
they say, poor Lorraine, gentle and quiet spirit.
She
Like we
doesn't
see
have
Nini, she does
the
not.
way
Also,
she's
what
loud
about-
and
you
the way
see?
she talks at Homescapes. That one you cannot choose.
Also-
No, wait.
Yeah.
Then my dentist decides, no, I'm not taking that advice. Me, I'm continuing. Next week, that person comes and says, so how did
Ulifikisha
the
wapi ile
breakup go?
maneno?
And me, I'm like,
the breakup go.
why? Don't ask me. Me, I didn't go with what you said. And then now it becomes, oh, you're not obedient to community. You know, I'm an
You
older
see
woman.
now,
But you see,
That
that's
advice-
another level that
and
we are
Advice
talking
is
about.
not a
But I'm
prescription.
Na
telling
hiyo
you,
ni
people
shida
get
ya mwenyewe.
offended.
Huyo mwingine mwenye amekuwa offended, that is their own problem. However,
In fact, why are you folding up at all? See, you let
The
me.
fact-
See,
the
see, I'm a grown up. I heard you.
You trust that I'll take the action.
Trust that I have heard what you said.
that they asked you that question in the first place or came to offer help is because they care about you. So first and foremost, let's assume it is a genuine care they have for you. That's why they came and were interested in your affairs to ask, Lorraine, how and you and Bonabundi, how are you doing? So even as you share that, they are coming from a place of care. That's the first assumption that we are making here. So if you don't take their advice and they get offended, that is on them, that is not on you. But you cannot dismiss now anyone or prevent anyone from coming simply because you
Because they
think,
did that.
if I don't take your answer, then you will be
But I think I also
know-
want to see the concern here is that there's okay, we in community.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
If you are, you're part of say the Mamlaka community, we are talking maybe 2,000-3,000 plus people. If you look at the larger community of Mahabir.
Yeah.
So again, I hear Lorraine's concern. And I think that the issue that we had touched on earlier, yes, there's general community. There are certain assumptions that community means well, etc. But I think there must be some discretion somewhere in terms of permissions. And this is where now the individual concerned, because let's also be honest, if it is your life, you are the one who is dating or the one who is on the spot, there must be some control that you have over the direction your life takes and who you allow to speak into your life. It cannot be, an open day for everyone so that you sit here and everybody comes and, brings their issues unless you are the judge, like Moses used to do. Even for him, he was told you can't listen to everybody. It's not possible for you to have that kind of power in terms of you'll get exhausted. So I think there must be a place for permission to be given by the individual who's concerned, so that at the end of the day, again, people do take offense. It's true. There are many who have sought to work with me on the leadership journey, but sometimes I have felt, maybe you're not equipped to advise me on church matters, just because it's a very specialized area. And spiritual leadership it differs significantly from corporate leadership, for example. And I have many friends in the corporate who I admire and do an excellent job in their area, but they would fail significantly badly if they came into my area, just like I would fail in their area. So even though I can see this person is well-intended, when I listen to them and the advice they give me, already I know this wouldn't work because the church is a whole different animal. So again, I want to lessen the heartbreaks, of people who give me advice and I ignore it because it can't work. I want to lessen their heartbreak, not even mine now, because I want this friendship to endure. And
It can be a question on ways to maximize profit in the church,
You see, we get that. But you see, because we are not a bottom line organization, maybe the things that I'm doing to them are contrary to what we should be doing. It is not prudent. Though that's what they will tell me. But that's not even my objective.
I hear you.
Planting a church like this doesn't make economic sense if you look at it. At least for most people, if you looking at it as a business. But this is not a business. We're in the business of saving souls for the kingdom of God. So the priorities are very different here than what would be in the corporate world. So I hear the place that Lorraine is coming from. Can I be given the opportunity to give people permission to speak into that life, or my life, or the leadership journey? Because you could be out there. I'm looking at maybe Maggie's out there. You can see she's very spiritual. She's a leader. She's a Christian. And there's something that she has to speak in. She can speak into my life that will be beneficial.
Or even something I admire about her that I would like to gain from her.
Let me throw a spanner in the works there.
Guys, listening to both parties, what is basically coming out, there is a good committee and there is a bad committee. And I think it will be prudent for us to get deeper into that after that, right? So that we assess what are these characteristics. At what point do I invite people in? At what point do I actually, people happen on me and I allow them? What are the things we can look at for us to be able to do this? So, but allow us to do this right after the break. So see you shortly. Karibuni sana back from our break.
Our blazing break.
Our blazing break that she helped me.
It's okay.
We're all waiting for that.
Jasmine, do not
Then you
worry.
want to be in my dating committee.
Don't worry, you're among
Jasmine,
friends.
you only make that mistake once in a year.
Jasmine.
Once in a year. So do not worry. For us, it's every day.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're
But I
doing well.
disqualify you, Mazenge, from the dating committee. But anyway, guys, that's what we are
With your
talking about.
language committee.
Oh my my goodness, let me see. We had a question on, it looks like what is coming up from this discussion is that there is a good committee and a bad committee. Remember, we're talking about dating committee. These are people who come, they want to be part of your relationship journey. So we are wondering, is it okay? Is it right? You know, what's the basis for that? And so we want to assess. And before we took the break, Madenge had a question.
Yes.
You had a comment or a question.
Yeah,
Please bring it up.
In fact, I was just on what Bishop had said, wanted to throw a spanner in the works there. And ask
Great.
ourselves, okay, he's given a very good example of his leadership journey. And I think that one, you can be able to tell this one is qualified, this one is not. But when you're talking about dating, would it be that we have the tendency to surround ourselves, and we have seen this in scripture for the kings, to surround ourselves with people who tell us what we want to hear. So if I know that Jasmine is always challenging my relationship, and always trying to show me maybe where I'm not doing right and what I can change, then I seclude her from ever coming into my space, and probably she has something that, to say about it that is really meaningful and that would be really helpful. But because she doesn't say what I want to hear, then I keep her off from my dating committee.
From
So
commenting,
even
yeah.
when we are choosing the issue
Yeah.
of dating committee,
You
I don't
want
think
people
we
who
can
say the right
totally
things.
rely on our own motivations to choose the committee.
but
And me, I want to ask.
People just box themselves, maybe.
Just for clarity, I hope when we're saying the dating committee, we are not assuming there's a formal appointed committee, isn't it?
Wait, and that's another
Actually,
question.
Lorraine
Yes.
is taking us
Wait,
there.
And
wait,
I-
did you
I
finish
have-
your thoughts? We are,
Yeah, I'm just saying, because
Is
we
it a
can say the
formal?
dating committee, I know it's distinct from a wedding committee. Wedding committee will actually appoint people who
Yes.
want to be involved
Yes.
and give them tasks,
Yeah.
and there's agreement,
So,
and there's
yeah.
direction and purpose. But when we say dating,
Dating
committee,
committee.
I
Is it a
guess that's
formal?
why you put the quotes.
The quote,
They're
yeah.
not really formal,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's people who appoint themselves because
Yeah.
they have interest maybe in my life.
Now, that's what I want to
It's
talk about
organic.
To
and
us.
say it is a possibility. In the Christian community, there are people who fully believe that you should have a formal person or people who you must tell everything about your life, who have full rights into your life in all ways. You know what I mean? So there is a group of people who believe the church is available. At any point, I can turn to whoever. If
Yeah.
I'm in a fix and I
Yeah.
know this one is the way I've seen them, I can go to anyone at any time. But there are people who believe Reverend Maggie is my older woman. So we should speak into that space, and not only that in my personal journey, but also for later on after you have dated and you're married, you feel like you must have a mentor couple, a particular couple that you go to for everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a formal
Yeah.
setup, so to speak. Maybe we
Yeah.
should speak into
Yeah.
that and say,
And
is
this
it
is-
important that we have a formal
this is
setup?
church tradition because I
Yeah.
don't see that it is scripted anywhere in the scriptures.
Not in the, it's not in the
But
scriptures.
church tradition has made
Yeah.
it that this is the way to do life
Yes.
if you are a Christian.
Yes. So that your suspect, you know how nowadays people will take a friend. I'll ask Jasmine to be, or Jasmine will ask me to be her best maid.
Yes.
And then her husband will pick a friend of his,
Yes.
and that looks suspect because she should come to a couple. She should come to Reverend Maura and Joanne.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it looks like
Not
why have
two
you
Even though you
separate
don't have an
people.
organic
Yeah,
natural
a
relationship.
don't
relationship.
have, or one of you has, Jasmine and Joanne have an organic relationship, but Renata and her husband do not have, but you have to make it work. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You
But-
can't
but you
just
see,
mix
there
it
is a
up.
benefit of
So
doing
must
that,
it be
surely.
formal? There could be, and I think
Yes,
we should talk about it
because-
now.
Yeah.
Should we have a formal
Yeah.
setup, or it's okay to just have the church available to you?
For me, I find it problematic when you start legislating relationships. I find it very, very problematic because it negates even our natural physiology. Because the fact that we could even be in the same real group, it doesn't mean that we naturally gravitate towards one another. Not that you have nothing useful to say, but everybody has the person to whom they naturally gravitate in terms of relationships. We don't even understand it. That's why we call it chemistry. And so to try and legislate that would be problematic because you might insist that your best mate should be Jasmine because she's married to the person to whom your fiance also is naturally friends with. But that's problematic because the whole idea of best mate, best man is not even culturally, grounded. But because it's in Christendom, we can talk about it. there's a person to whom I feel completely. Let me give a practical example. Our best couple was not a couple. Okay, Maggie and I. Again, this is not legislation, so I'm not saying therefore you don't have to do things this way. But Maggie's best friend, who introduced her to Christianity, introduced both of us to BSF, is still her very close friend, was her best mate. My buddy, my first Christian friend that I had, I felt that's the man that I want to stand for me in terms of my best man.
Yeah.
I had many, real good friends who are not believers at the time, and I felt though we had a very long shared history, for this particular journey, I wanted my first Christian friend, who's still my very close friend, to be the man to stand for me. And that's how we did it.
Yeah.
So if somebody came and insisted that we have to have, a couple, number one, we were very new believers at the time. I don't even know that we knew a couple who were both Christians, and who could, play that role. So it was even impractical for us. Yet the needs that I had as a Christian man, I felt because of my good friend and buddy, we could walk that journey together. And to date, we've done life for what, Maggie? Maybe over 25 years together since that time.
Wow.
Raised children together, done all kinds of things together, and I felt that was a good choice. They're still very close with our best mate, even to date. So I think that's why I was saying it's problematic when you legislate relationships.
Yeah.
It's a good idea if you can get a couple then who can work for you.
Absolutely,
It's
yeah.
great,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it needs to work for both of you, not for one of you. Because again, what do we tell people about marriage? We have to learn how to negotiate and to compromise.
Yeah.
But if we have chosen then that so and so will be her best mate because her husband is my
your
best
best friend.
It's already a selfish decision
Yes,
at that level.
Someone
Yeah.
has to give in for the
Yeah.
other.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have a question. There's a question we didn't fully answer that Madenge
Madenge,
raised.
yes. Yeah.
That had to do with when it comes to now. Okay, I need to
people
allow
you-
people. I need to give people permission. We run. His point was we run the risk of inviting people who know they'll say what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Let's explore that a little bit. What do you guys
My
have to
first
say about
question
it?
to that is, why am I perpetually suspect of sin? if you're not talking with me, I will go wrong. If you're not doing this, I'll go wrong. If I decide who I'm talking to, I will sin. Why? It feels to me that the perpetual theme is I'm suspect of sinning at all times.
And
Why
you know,
don't you
an
trust that
interesting-
I'm walking with
Which-
Jesus?
which
That
we-
Jesus
we
can
do
tell me,
liberally,
Lorraine,
right?
you have fixed that one
Lorraine,
because you'll tell me.
The heart of
I
man is
feel like from
continually
your
wicked.
question, something you're raising up is then accountability here seems to look like it's pointing out sin constantly.
You
As
always-
opposed,
that's
is
the
there
wrong
more
thing.
that can be
Yeah.
done in
It's-
accountability?
It's like you are so inadequate,
Yeah.
to stand on your own.
Yeah.
So I'm here observing you. You
Yes.
get when we are called to mind our babies, so that they don't touch the sockets,
Yeah.
they don't touch the,
Yeah.
they don't touch the microwave or whatever. Instead of, it's also a time of modeling. You get, it's also a time of reading stories with them, encouraging them, and perhaps instilling some values. When we hear the word accountability,
We have made it narrow, I think, yeah.
Exactly. It's not friendship. It's not a walking together. You get, because even as the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they do agree? They do agree. So we are agreeing that this journey of ours will celebrate the good. We also be with each other when circumstances are hard. I don't feel like going home. You're the one who will take you. You have to take me home. You get, there's that mutual agreement.
So
When
can
it comes
we
to-
introduce a third aspect then, for the conversation to be complete, accountability, permission, but also boundaries. Because the boundaries then force us to recognize this other person as an individual and respect them
Yes.
as individuals
Yeah.
on their own personal journey with Jesus Christ, where my input is not required. Because it's not always that my input will be required. I can observe something, and maybe what the Lord tells me is not go and talk to Maggie about it, even as a husband, is to shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let God do his work in her life. I think those boundaries are important also to recognize.
Yeah.
Because again, relationships are complex. It's not a one size fit all that you have to get a mentor couple. It's a great idea. If God gives you a mentor couple, even strive for it. It's great, But I can tell you, Maggie and I got one, but purely by default. We didn't even know they're a mentor couple, and they didn't start off like that. And we didn't have that for a very long time. Yet God was with us and he watched over us. Eventually he gave us that at that point. Now we don't have one in that sense that we had before. So again, we can't legislate these things because seasons of life also demand that we bring.
Yeah.
God might use different individuals at different times in our lives to impact our lives significantly.
Bishop, but you know what happens outside there
Yeah.
if you're constantly changing people and relationships and all that, you're pointed out as a person who is not consistent. So even, and that informs a lot even when you're being employed, you know, you're getting into formal employment. You know, as people are interviewing you and assessing you, they're thinking,
You've worked in 10
you-
organizations.
Yeah,
Last
or
2
even
years.
just relationships, the way you do. If it's a relational aspect, a job related, that's
You're not stable.
relational. They pick out,
Yeah.
you're never consistent. Today you're here, there's what you displayed in that relationship. Tomorrow you're there. What do we do? What do we do with that?
But when you say you're here and you're there, see at the people that, I'm talking about the roles that a particular maybe couple or individual played, they are no longer playing that role. For example, when I was a young Christian, there's somebody that I really admired and I looked up to them. But at one point, you know, we don't even relate that way. In fact, now I pastor them. You get, the relationship has changed. And so if I insisted that this will always be my mentor, at one point they exhausted the resources they had because that's the level they were at. I needed to recognize that, and God was calling me elsewhere to walk a journey that they will never be required to walk, because I was being called to be a leader and to be a church planter and to be a mentor of many. Okay, so at one point, many people who mentored me in my earlier life are now part of my parish. You know, so what am I to do with that if I'm stuck that you're my disciple? They were up to a certain point. And we have to recognize that even for Paul and Barnabas, for example, there is a time that Barnabas was the empowerer and the benefactor for Paul. But at one time, those roles changed. And you can even see the conflict that occurred at one point. And now, Paul was the church planter. He planted most of the churches we know in the New Testament and wrote most of the doctrines there. And if he remained under Barnabas, then he was limiting what God was calling him to be. Not to disenfranchise Barnabas, because he had been called for a particular purpose. In fact, he legitimized Paul's ministry among the Gentiles and some of the Jews. If it wasn't for his benefactoriness, okay, if it wasn't for that, Paul would never have become acceptable. But at one point when he had done his role, he needed to step back and let Paul be Paul. So there are those. So it doesn't mean that Paul then was not consistent, you know, or that walikosana na Barnabas. Not necessarily. Even the people who at one point then we stop relating with in a particular capacity doesn't mean that we are not friends, okay? We are still friends, we have a relationship, but it's a different relationship redefined by the season of life that God has called us into.
Bishop, let me ask something there. And you've, I think, brought it out very clearly. How about the individualism that is creeping into our context today, where if I'm not intentionally pursuing someone who can walk with me in the journey of marriage, for example, or in my dating life, then I am running the risk of doing that alone. And we have seen many people who have shrunk back into, by the what do I need from others? I can do life alone. Yeah. And I think that is a danger that is present, so that even as we are, again, suspect of formalizing relationships, if we don't pursue any structure or formality when it comes to relationships, especially younger people pursuing older guys and saying, hey, this journey of marriage, Buana, I need help. So, or I would like you to help me walk that journey. Then I run the risk of doing that alone and never ever having and never finding the need for someone to work with you.
And that, in my opinion, is problematic, because it means that as a believer, an individual believer, I must be committed to the bigger values of Scripture, and that is living life in community, which is different from the permissions we were talking about. I must recognize that this is a legitimate community that I have been appointed to live within by God, so that at the end of the day, if I don't pursue any relationship, for example, if I'm interested, even for selfish reasons, for my marriage to work, it should be my initiative to seek counsel, you know, and counsel of older people who I feel they have walked the journey ahead of me. So I think we are not discounting that. We're saying as a believer, you must live in accountability, but then within the bigger framework, we must say, then who must I allow into my circles because of the questions of permissions? What are the boundaries I should observe? And I don't think we should ever debate whether I should be in accountability or not. We should be in accountability and in community. Yes.
So
However, the
you're bringing
community, okay, I really want to say something, but I feel like
Just go ahead,
Remegi wants to
go
say
ahead.
something.
Just go ahead.
Okay, the issue that Madenge has brought up sometimes, and I don't know.
Please mention the issue.
This one,
Yeah.
that for asking yourself, what do I need from community?
Individuality.
Yeah,
I can do it on my
individuality. Okay, I see.
individuality. And I must say, I'm not even sure I know anyone who has said, me, I don't need community. I'm pulling back. I don't need you. What I know people have done is they have tried to be part of community, and community did not steward them well. And so their pulling back was a pulling back of heart and fear. My information was not stewarded well. You know what I mean? That's what brought them into it. And they said, you know what, me, I'm just going to deal with Jesus.
Yes.
I'm not going to deal
Yes.
with humans.
Yes.
Now, what do you say? Because sometimes we can make big of accountability, but not teach the individuals how to be responsible with their Christian brothers
Thank
and
you,
sisters.
thank you, Revlo.
I think
'cause
you've
that
taken my
leads
point.
Me, yeah, that in fact, that leads me to my
Yeah.
question, my
Yeah.
next question as well. What is this communityhood, accountability, hood, if there's anything like that in English, that you're calling people to? I give an instance of, let's say, a couples group. We've come together, you know, Lo and the husband, Madenge and the wife, you know, we want to work together as couples. The scenarios that I've observed is we come share our issues, and you all listen to me, you all listen to our issues, and we are concerned. Then 2 days later, I'm outside there and I am trending. Do you guys think I will come and be a part of that group again? I'll come, offer you what you want to hear, and then that's it. So that leads to the question that I'm asking. What is this communityhood that you are calling people to? Can we define it so that we are not asking people to do the impossible, or to just be offering superficial, you know, fronts that cannot be handled, and hence we become very plastic communities? Can we define the community a little bit more?
That's a very good concern. Maura is going to define it.
especially in a season of maybe what I'll call sort of intimate relationships. You get, so you think that this is it, and that is brought by the struggle to fit. You get, I need to belong somewhere for me to be seen that I'm not a lone ranger. I'm going to give some information and all that, so that I can be able to fit. That I'm not dating in secrecy. You get, the real group is aware. You know, the boys club and the ladies club, so to speak, they are aware. So that I'm not, you know, I'm dating in the limelight. You get, and by that time you have not really examined the people that you are really sharing this information with. One of the things that I do treasure much, which people getting married nowadays they don't like, is when in a wedding, you know, a young couple, the friend to the bride's mother come with a tea strainer, the kichungi, you get, and one of the things they say there, you know, chunga, hii kichungi ni ya kuchunga vitu zenye unasikia huko, so you have to, you get, so you unachunga mambo.
Lo, we
you
forgot
get,
to give you a kichungi.
yeah, we forgot. I don't know if Lo will have accepted.
Yeah.
I don't know if you should have accepted. Did you get? Anyway, but during our time we were given, you get, that there is some information that you are going to hear, and you have the mandate, and you are at liberty to say, this is going to eat me to this extent. There are things that we can hear out there, you get, that are not helpful at all. So we have to first to examine the people that are with you, and that sometimes you don't examine them you know, it's not that we've been in a fellowship for a week or 2 weeks, and then you pour information out there. They might mislead you with that. So we have to be really careful and know that this journey of dating is perhaps the platform is that of trust and honesty. You get trust and honesty.
Yeah,
You know,
listening to you guys, it looks like we're in agreement. We're in agreement that there's good committee, there's bad committee, right? So who qualifies to be in a dating committee as we wrap up this discussion? Who qualifies to be in
Can
a
I say
dating committee?
that one thing I've been thinking about as an answer to that question is, have you ever met someone and instinctively you knew they were trustworthy? You don't know them, you've never had a relationship with them for long, you didn't need to chunga them for years. Just something about that person oozes maturity, I don't know, care. Yeah, and something about them makes you feel safe to tell them. And indeed, after you have told them, you know, this is happening, and a year into years in, you're still safe with them. Have you ever been in that spot? Me, personally, I feel like I have been.
Okay.
And I would like to say such a person belongs in a
to the
good
dating
committee.
committee.
Someone who is individually growing with Jesus
Yeah.
in such a way that it is observable
Yeah.
to the person who
Yeah.
is in need
Yeah.
at that point.
Beautiful.
I
Thank
think.
you for sharing. Rev Maggie, you had a thought? Oh, Bishop, you want to go first? Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to speak into the earlier issue, just very briefly. I do agree that you personally have a responsibility to live your life in a way that is accountable and that you yourself are being observed by other people. Sometimes we blame others for trending, but the reason we trend is the way we live our lives. We live our lives carelessly,
point,
without
absolutely.
responsibility, and when we trend, we say that people are talking
blame.
about us. How can they not? Seeing that you are, you
Yeah.
live your life in a dramatic
Yeah.
and maybe even very audacious and when I told you, you almost want
Which one?
you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And even the neighbors are saying, hey, do you see how, I mean, we can observe if you're a very, really dramatic couple and you're doing stuff that people talk, people like to talk.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you offer them opportunity to talk,
You offer
they will
for
really
the-
talk. So I feel sometimes that as individuals, we refuse to take responsibility for the way we live our lives in the public spaces. Because these are public spaces. And when people then sometimes end up talking, is because what they have observed is quite amusing and quite dramatic. Okay? So there's the responsibility of the individual.
Absolutely.
But now, within the particular, say you give the example of the couples team that are working together, you have to agree, because we said you get together with people with shared values. So if one of you breaks those shared values, then they must be confronted. You see? And if they are confronted, they must be accountable to that group because you've committed yourself to them. All right? So you can't want your cake and also eat it at the same time. So that when you're confronted within the couples group for whom you share values, you say that, leave me alone, this is my life, I'm living it. Then why are you in community? You see?
In the first
So,
place.
in the first place. But if they do confront you and address the issue mutually, the discretion then must be kept within. If somebody within that group then goes and starts talking about it, that person must be confronted by the group. And say, why
Yeah.
did you go to talk about these matters? We have already agreed, so that the sanction of the group itself is good for both the individual and who is conforming and the one who wants to be accountable. But also the one who does not conform and the one who doesn't want to be accountable. So that we don't give up on the fellowship and say, this thing doesn't work, I'm doing life alone with Jesus because, the thing is not working.
Yes.
If it is not working, fix it. Don't give
Yes.
up on it.
Yes.
Bishop,
Because
can I ask you a question from what you've said? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Jasmine.
No, that's okay.
Sometimes you are a Christian. Now, let me just throw a spanner in the works. I don't know whether you guys have experienced it. A Christian has gotten into a sinful or a difficult position, lifestyle
As
even.
he's bound to.
Yeah. And the community gets into their space and they want to, help them through that process. But this person, and I think this happens a lot in Christian community, is not ready. Not that they're not ready to recognize it as sin, they're not ready to deal with it with humans. And I recognize that I'm in that group
Yeah,
and all.
yeah.
And I know I'm not refusing that I am in sin, but I'm not yet safe enough to talk about it with you guys. Is it okay for the group to give me space to deal with it with God first,
Yeah.
instead of, but you're in community?
The first,
Yeah.
the
Allow
first
us
people I
to-
go to is the
No,
community.
Yeah,
I
it
think
should
that's-
not be a bashing. I agree. It should not be a bashing, but there should be clear communication from you that, hey guys, this is going on, give me space.
Yeah.
And then we give you space. But it's not forever. The space has to come to an end. Because, and the space is, let me deal with it with God. That's completely legitimate because in any case, you're first and foremost accountable to God. And at the point that you feel accepted by God or you've dealt with God, you should feel safe enough to come back to
come back
community.
now and-
Because you can tell us I'm at a good space, God has done this, but it doesn't mean that the issue will not be dealt with by the community.
So are
because
you-
they too
are-
have
are
to
you-
And that's
come
my
to a place
question.
of
Is it
rest.
okay if I never deal
Yeah,
with
are
it
you
with
saying-
community?
yeah.
I dealt with it with God,
With God and then
I
that's
moved
it.
on from it because God is the one who forgives anyway.
No,
not
no, no, no.
community.
The challenge is this.
And
The-
so I want to come back to you and say,
Yeah.
now I'm free. I
Now
don't want
you're
to
free.
tell you how this is. Then I told God this. Then God.
No, that's
I don't
not
want to
even the
process
level
it
of accountability.
with people.
We just say because we are a couple and for example, if it's a couple and it was dating, you're no longer together with your fiancé, mumewachana, for example, and you're never going to be together. This wedding is not going to happen. But this is the purpose for which we were all hoping. So at one point, you owe us an explanation that, okay, I dealt with it with God. So what happens? Are we continuing with the dating? No, we've broken up. Okay, our concern is, isn't there anything we can do? Because you convinced us that this is a good thing, that it's going somewhere. Now you've decided it is not. Then, is it that you dealt with God, or is it just that you've broken it up?
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about it. I have just told you. Do you trust my walk with Jesus? Yes. Do you trust that last year you saw this and now you're seeing this fruit of the Spirit? Yes. So I'm growing in Jesus.
Bishop is
And I
telling you to
do.
not trust
Yeah,
yourself.
because he has used the word owe. You owe it to the community to explain certain things because you pull them in at a certain point.
And for this particular issue.
For this
Yes.
particular
So if
issue.
it's broken-
But I have come 2 months down the line and I have decided I don't want community in my space for this particular issue. You can talk to me about
I
my
don't
There's
think
a
that is
problem
a
there.
liberty that you
now,
have
Let
at
me
all.
tell you.
my underlying question is my communication about my life about me or about you? Are you helping me for me or are you helping me for yourselves? Because if at that point I decide I don't want to talk about this anymore, are you owed? My life.
What do I owe the
You
community?
You
my
as an
heart.
explanation. Okay, you see, you as an explanation of how you came to the decision that this thing is not going to work.
Why
So
owe?
that,
Why don't you
wait,
just
wait a
say-
minute,
Let me-
so that you say, look, this is my decision, we've broken up, we're not working together. Because we too, as a community, need to heal and move on.
And we are invested.
Because then, what then would be the purpose of you being in community if it is not, remember we said we have shared values. And you are the one who persuaded us that you and this guy are actually going somewhere. So what do we do with you and what do we do with this guy?
Yeah,
Are you still part of the community and how do we then relate to you? We have to redefine the relationship.
I see.
And for us to redefine the relationship in a healthy way,
I see.
for example, if the healthy way is as complicated as accepting one of you and not the other, how is that going to work out? Because we still owe this brother, fellowship and community. And if you're both going to be in this same fellowship, then how do we deal with you?
I
The-
agree.
the
I agree
awkwardness.
there
we
can
need
be ways-
closure also because imagine this relationship has come to an end and now soon you find another man or
Yeah,
you know
and I bring him.
you bring how are you going to
convince you
relate?
this is also
No,
We are
you
still-
don't
Su-
want you to
supposing
use
you are
it. Let's
you're
hear Reverend Baggy
if there are
over here.
serial breakups, because there have been cases like that, you bring another one, unatupeleka hapo, alafu unasema huyu sio yeye. So at that point, we have to ask ourselves, are we being really our sister's keeper?
Yes.
And because you trust us enough to bring the other one, and maybe even another one, then at one point we have to tell you, hey, you sit down, girl, I think here, you are the issue.
But when it has become a serial thing, sometimes
Yeah.
it's just a one-off.
Yeah, if it's a
Something
one-off, we-
terribly wrong, and my heart is so wounded, I cannot.
Yeah.
I will not.
Yeah.
Maybe I will tell you this when I'm 10 years married to someone else some other time. I
Yeah.
don't
That's
want
the
to.
healing happens.
just
But
want
I wanted
tell
to say
you,
quickly-
I'm
Yeah.
done.
I just wanted to say quickly, it is important to reveal or to be held accountable by the group, and it's your responsibility as a hurting person to come and share so that the community can know how to help you. So, because we see, even the Bible talks about, I think it's Paul in Corinthians 12, says the body is one. So if one finger is hurting, the whole body
All
is in
of us are
trouble.
hurting.
So we don't want you to assume that we are not part of the body. We are part of the body. And we covenanted with the values that we keep together. So when you want to say, when you come to us and say, I don't want to tell you, so what do you mean? This finger needs a bandage. We need to bandage it. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. We will observe this like a wound here. We need to treat it. So we want to allow a place for a community that is thriving, a community that is organic, and that one which is growing. And we don't want to be fake. If we have agreed to be real, we want to be supportive to one another. So I don't want to come to you guys and then you don't ask me questions. So if this guy did me in, and I'm part of this community, you must be able to go to that Jama and ask him a few questions because you care about me. So it's not just about me asking me questions, it's also holding my entire relationship and bringing it into account. You get what I'm saying?
You know
Let
why
us
I asked
go
that
into your
question? Because
business.
those things have happened in the Christian community and they didn't work out well. A person breaks up with a man. The person goes and says, this is what happened, and that's why. And the man will also say, Kwani, after we break up, even you go and now talk about me. I don't like how you're sharing about our details. And it becomes bad. Even if it could have been salvaged, it becomes, now that we shared the details of who did what to another, and that's why we have ended. And you know, we thought we were sharing. Alafu kwanza community does this. I come and share with you. Me, you know, Nani hurt me like this. That's why. Then you, because you're caring for me and for him, you go and ask him. But me, I think you guys can salvage this. Why don't you work at? This is the wisdom. But that person feels, why did you go? So it can become, and it has happened. You guys know it becomes messy afresh. So that person feels, stop being in my space. You're talking about, and now if the community puts itself in that space.
Don't we agree that relationships are messy? Okay,
so
looking for a clinical way to solve an already bad situation, you're in surgery, there's going to be blood. You know, the point is, the person doing the surgery, does he mean well or does he mean ill? The fact that blood is splattering all over should not be the reason to be frightened and say, it's going to get gangrene and then you'll have to be amputated. So if there's a point of us stitching it together, even with blood on our faces, yes, you say this, well, the point is not whether you said it or you didn't. Was it true? If it's true that that is what you did, then why don't you acknowledge your sin and say, I'm sorry for hurting you in this way? And you say, I accept you're sorry. And that way we become actually the midwives to bring, maybe you guys have decided to break up. But when we paint out the sin and say, no, you are the one who was wrong. You should apologize to her. And if you're not man enough to do that, then maybe you don't deserve her. And then we become guys, a healing balm rather than, but we shouldn't be afraid of the blood or the fact that relationships are messy. And sometimes it gets worse before it gets better.
Hence why, guys, my question still remains. Who qualifies to be in the dating committee as we wrap up this discussion? We need, because we are agreeing that the banter, the back and forth is saying, we are agreeing there are some who exist that is perfect. There are some who are existing, they're dysfunctional, and we need them out. So how do we tell our people, these people should be in your dating committee?
Jasmine, can I ask that question in this way? Do we need to teach people how to be? I don't know if you understand what I'm asking.
I get you, and I think,
Once we have defined who is a bad committee and good committee, how can we all become
the good committee?
Part of
and
the
the
good
truth
committee.
is, we may not all become, because we are at different levels in our walk with Jesus. A few people do qualify. Not everybody qualifies. A few people do qualify, because we also know that our personalities are different. There's somebody who can latch onto a particular point of story, and they themselves become victims of that relationship in terms of how it's going badly. And that becomes a problem. So we do need people who have walked the journey before, who have your interest at heart, who have the maturity to look at this and then make a decision, number one, from an authoritative biblical position, meaning they have a good grasp of the scriptures, and also are discerning and well-meaning. So it's not, again, everybody who qualifies
to be in
so
the
at one
committee.
point, I see the circle becoming smaller and smaller until maybe you are left with one or two people who can speak, whose authority is recognized, and who can speak into an issue objectively, and people can say, you know, like Jesus sometimes would say something. It doesn't make sense, but they say, because you say so. You know, there must be the person then who then at one point can make a decision about that. And you yourself have to be willing to submit to that authority. If you're not, then the whole it's pointless to even do it. Because if then you become your own authority, sometimes you are the injured party. You can't see how injured you are, and therefore your decisions themselves may be very subjective, even though they might be harmful to you.
And Jasmine, also, it's also good to acknowledge that as the relationship grows, it takes it grows and takes a personality. You get the people, for example, like the people when I met my wife Joanne, the people that we were together with in that meeting, you know, we were friends. You get, we were friends, and we had our own jokes and all that. But as we got into getting to know each other deeper and all that, we realized that there's some values that we need to cultivate, and maybe these guys, they were not equipped at that moment to guide us and to walk with us, because we must have been the first ones to be in a relationship in that group. So what does that mean? This way we are heading. So we found ourselves with another kind of like committee. You get, we went through together. We now found again another kind of like a committee when we went through PMCC, because now you're sharing the same values. We know where we are going and all that. So don't feel bad. I mean, dragging everyone. You get, everyone feel the freedom to say that I think we're in a new season, maybe where we are at, we may not be able to
Yeah,
go to, we may not
absolutely.
be able to go together.
Yeah.
Also be careful about feelers. I mean, I call them feelers. You know, there are people who speak just for the sake of speaking. You get, there are those guys who ask, you know, when are you, you know, you are almost done with college, when are you ever going to be in a relationship? They don't mean it.
Yeah.
You get, they don't
Yeah.
mean it.
Yeah.
So now if I go and find a relationship, you know, from wherever, because people have said I'm now ripe for a relationship. I get.
How about when
then-
you're
then I
dating
got-
and they keep
then-
asking you, "Mchala ni lini? Mchala ni lini?"
those are the same guys. Now you get into a relationship. So harusi ni when? Now you tell them the harusi ni this month.
Okay.
Then they start asking you, hey, we are not seeing. Kwani, what's happening? You don't have a. You don't. And then
Mko
you,
sawa.
then you follow them. You become a spokesman, a spokesperson of the committee.
Yeah.
People are asking, when are we ever going to have children?
Yeah.
Then you have a
An
child.
unexistent
Then they start asking
committee.
you. They start asking you again, when are we ever going? This child needs a brother or a sister. Then you follow them to you get another. You get a brother or a sister. Then they tell you, now you see this fight that you have. Now you need a tiebreaker.
So you
get,
really have
so
no
you get a
charge
that
of your
you get a
life.
that one. Then they start
Constantly
asking you.
being tossed
Yeah.
to and
Then they
fro.
start asking you now, when are you ever going to take them
Thank
to school
you. Yeah.
and all that. So you always you
That's
become a
not the rule of the
spokesman.
committee, it's
Yeah.
the rule of the grandparents.
Right.
The
Thank
committee
you.
of the
And-
grandparents. So be careful about the feelers.
Yeah.
That's why we are saying examine the people that you're doing life together with, and be careful. Know that there are those people who have got sincere motives, and there are those that who've got insincere motives.
So a call to be a discerning person, to be transparent and honest with yourself as well, you know,
Exactly.
involving God. Because transparency, I think, takes care of what Madenge was saying. Am I inviting people that will say things that I want to hear? But also discernment to know, to acknowledge a Christian journey is different, you know. You came to me when I was in the foundations of faith, but years later, the Lord has catapulted me into the higher, all I'm experiencing are his glories. Now,
third
umebaki
heaven.
huko, you
You went
know.
that
But it doesn't mean I don't need
Killing.
accountability.
Absolutely. No,
But
that's
I do,
not what we're saying.
but
You do.
probably at a different
At
level.
a different level,
Yeah.
absolutely. So acknowledging all that is important, and that answers our question, who qualifies? So let's be honest, let's be transparent, let's embrace it as difficult as it comes. There's something amazing that you said. As we assess accountability, let us also be people who can be accountable. Does that make sense? Let me try paraphrase what your words were. Don't live in a way that gives people fodder to constantly say and then say, watu wananiongelelea huko nje.
Yes.
I
How are
thought
you
that was
living your
very
life?
helpful. How are you living your life? And those people that we are coming to you, trusting you, be good stewards. Be confidential, be mature, be loving, be caring. The high Christian calling, I think, is what is coming up from this discussion. Thank you so much. I hope you've had an amazing time like we've had. And until next week, stay safe and God bless you.